Myself, Dr. Manan Devedi, and in continuation of the series of lectures on international relations and international organizations, we are going to go ahead on our discussion on the India-Pakistani bilateral relations, which I lovingly and very assiduously love to call as an India-Pakistan bilateral. Now, what we need to understand, the history is always there in front of us. The historical details need to be mentioned in a very brief manner, and what I will do is that I will start from the present day times. If we look into, we are turning the clock forward by 30, 40, 50 years, and to see that how the present regime, how the present Delhi denomination under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has actually done with Pakistan. Initially the discussion concentrated upon the unmitigated criticism of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his foreign policy, that with a catchword that we have a failed foreign policy towards Pakistan. That was the allegation. Another allegation was that it is not a long termist policy, and we have been going on with the general idea of what do you call, of ad hocism, and a kind of a stitch in 9 saves 9 approach, where we are not having a complete control, or we are not getting complete obeisance from Pakistan. Now, by obeisance I do not mean that they will completely bow before each other, but the way in which need not be retold and repeated and reiterated, the way the Islamic Republic of Pakistan has been bleeding India blue since the 30-40 years since the start of the trouble and the imbroglio in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That happens to be one of the irritants, one of the biggest irritants in the larger framework of India and Pakistan relationship. Now, Prime Minister Modi did a very clever diplomatic trick and did an excellent job while he was returning a few years back in his Modi 1.0, because we are living in Modi 2.0. But during Modi 1.0, he went all the way to Moscow and to Central Asia to be part of an international summit, SCO summit, and while he was supposed to land in New Delhi, but he had a telephonic talk with Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, and he got down into Peshawar airport as part of an unplanned trajectory of an event. It was an unplanned event, and participated in the granddaughters, in Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's marriage, as a guest, as a state guest, and also as a personal friend. Now, that kind of an idea was very much lampooned, very assiduously targeted by the Indian media. What Prime Minister Modi had been trying was to make the American Democrats responsible international player, and to wean them away from a general idea of transporting terror, funding and training to the Mujahideen who infiltrate into the state of Jammu and Kashmir whenever the snow melts in the Himalayan tracts shared by India and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So, Prime Minister Modi has tried a lot, but what we need to understand is that in the aftermath of Pulwama, we had the Balakot incident. So, when we talk about the Pulwama and the Balakot reprieve for the patriotic and bereaved Indians at the loss of 40 odd CRPF men in Pulwama, India really told the Pakistanis, India told the larger cabal of terror mongers, actors like Indian Mujahideen, actors like Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Islamic State, along with the Taliban, that India is a powerful nation state and we are here to stay, and we will not sit silent if our soldiers are being victimized or are being taken for a ride, if their lives are being taken. Then we are also going to get inside your territory. We will get inside your territory and grab the culprits not only by the scruff of their necks, but we are going to put our khokaris into their stomach and really play with their entrails. That was a strong, patriotic and a very practical and a very effective message, a kind of a messaging. It was a kind of a communication to the rest of the world, and specifically to the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and to the Pakistani army, zealots and spies in the inter-services intelligence of Pakistan. So, Indians fought. Abhinandan was born, like our very own Tom Cruise, who was and it was one of the greatest successes of Indian democracy and Prime Minister Modi. I am not being a Modi Bhakt here, but I appreciate his foreign policy. Your people are free to give your views, you can counteract and you can contradict, but still Abhinandan was born and was born a new icon for India, a new myth for India, which was a realistic myth, which is a very surprising turn of phrase, that how can a myth be realistic. But it was Abhinandan, and it was the Indian soldiers who went in the night, and all the Pakistani training camps were compromised in Balakot, and they came back without a single casualty. Now that kind of an event, it was an event, I agree, it was a political spectacle, I agree, but what we need to keep in our mind is that tooth for tooth, an eye for an eye, and ear for an ear, and a hand for an hand. That is the only baser language, that is the only crass language which Pakistan and the Islamabad establishment understands. So it's a carrot and stick approach that India needs to follow as far as its policy, foreign policy and relationship with Pakistan is concerned. Now, how blatant and how agile the Pakistanis were when Balakot happened. Then in August 2019, Imran Khan, the Pakistanis, what they did was that they completely cut off trade. They completely cut off trade with India, and it was later on Ajay Sahani who laughed at it. He is the chairman of the Federation of Indian Organization of Diplomats and Business Class. He said that even if Pakistan cuts away all the relationship with India, including the trade links, India has the surplus in its advantage. India has the trade surplus in its advantage, where Indian exports to Pakistan amount to $2.06 billion, and India's imports from Pakistan amounts to $460 million only. So even if the Pakistanis completely cut off their trade with India, we are not going to be in much of a harm, in much of a loss of profit, because we are going to be unaffected by the lynching of the relationship or the trade relationship between India and Pakistan. So the Pakistani act of cutting off complete trade links with India in August 2019 is not going to bring that kind of an avalanche of an economic distress in India which it is made out to be. That is what we need to understand. And Pakistan also imposed a 2000% tariff on the kind of goods which enter India, which is once again not much of an impact on India. Now apart from this, if we go into the kind of exchanges, the commodity exchanges that take place between India and Pakistan, then it is India gets cottons, dyes, plastics, and India sends tomatoes to them. We get edible nuts from them, and that is the kind of trade baggage. That is the kind of trade trade corpus that exists between India and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Now, recently in one of his interviews to BBC and Guardian, Prime Minister Imran Khan has gone on to contend that India is creating a great human tragedy in Kashmir by the twin-pronged decisions, of the Citizenship Amendment Act, which came into being about an year back, and also by really inciting communal violence against the Muslim population in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and not only in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, but in all other sensitive regions of the country. Now this is a kind of a this makes him a kind of a laughing stock, because if you look at the Balochistan situation, if we look at the kind of treatment which has been meted out to the Ahmadiyya minorities in Pakistan, which are not considered to be Islamic, which are not considered to be Muslim, then also we need to realize that a person who is himself living in a glass house should not throw pebbles at another's glass house, because it is going to boomerang. It is part of the larger boomerang phenomena, that if you throw the toy, then the toy might or might not hit the enemy or the antagonist, but it might come and grapple with your own throat. So that is the kind of double-edged foreign policy that Pakistan has been following, and India has been doing well. I personally at many times have suggested to a few diplomats and to the MEA people that India should come out with a diplomatic statement that we are completely de-recognizing Pakistan as a nation state. So these are a few nimble ideas or neophytic ideas, if you can say it, because I am very much junior than you people. But still, this is how a hard foreign policy against Pakistan will bode well for India. I once again thank all the participants for being such patient and lovable listeners. Thanks a lot.